It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the Wolfeboro Planning Board, March 2nd, 2021 Planning Board meeting. My name is Kathy Barnard. I'm the chairman of the Planning Board. This meeting, there are a couple members that are attending the meeting remotely, and the rest of the board members are here at the Great Hall, and that is, it's called a hybrid meeting, and that is allowed in these times that we're in. If you want to log in to the meeting, the login information is as follows: https://global.go-to-meeting.com/join/918242429. If you have any questions or concerns, you can email the planning director at wolfeboronh.us. Now, all of our votes need to be taken by roll call vote, so I'm going to go first to the members who are off-site, and when you indicate that you're present, if you'd also indicate if someone is in the room with you. So I'll go first to Vaughn.
Here, no humans.
Okay, Vaughn Dugan. And Peter Goodwin.
I am here, and there's no one in the room.
Thank you. Mike Hodder.
Present.
Yeah, John Thurston.
Here.
Brad Harriman.
Here.
Brad's the representative from the Board of Selectmen to the Planning Board. Susan Replier, our other Planning Board meeting member, is not here this evening. Julie Jacobs is the alternate. Julie, would you be willing to sit in Susan's place?
Yes, I will.
And you're present.
I'm present.
Okay, all right, and Kathy Barnard, I'm present. The first order of business is a public hearing, and let me go over the procedure for that. I'll read the item into the record. The applicant will then present the application. Planning board members will have an opportunity to ask questions, and then I'll find out if the planning director has any additional information for us. Once we go through that procedure, we need to determine if the application is complete. If it is, then ask for a motion to accept the application as complete. And if that motion is in the positive, I can then open the public hearing for any member of the public who might want to comment on the application. So we can proceed with the first item. Philip and Erica Marbury, R&M Family Trust, Aaron and Samantha Marbury. This is 1160 Center Street, tax map and lot number 57-01, case number 2021-02. This is a subdivision for 4 lots. So the applicant, wanted to come on up, identify yourself, and if you'll go through all of the requirements in order for you to have this 4-lot subdivision.
Very good, thank you. My name is Philip Marbury, and I am here on behalf of my 2 brothers and all of our wives, who are the applicants. And we have submitted an application. We purchased this 35-acre lot, having done a preliminary review to ensure that it was able to be subdivided, because our goal for it is for one of us to occupy the house, that's my wife and I, and then for my other 2 brothers to build houses on the lots so that we can live in close proximity and have our children run and play in the woods together. We have provided the plans that are meeting all of the minimum requirements. well beyond the minimum requirements for subdivision. Each of the 4 lots has 400 or more feet of access along the road there, and each of the 4 lots exceeds the minimum square footage requirements. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability. Obviously, these plans were put together by our surveyor. But we believe that we have satisfied every condition for a subdivision of land under the Wolfeboro Subdivision Ordinance, and so are asking for this board to approve the subdivision so that we can kind of begin the next steps to getting everything finalized and getting the other 2 houses built on these lots.
Okay, you folks did attend the technical review committee. That was on January 6th. And at that time, I mentioned that possibly you might want to consider coming to the planning board as sort of a pre-application meeting in order for the planning board to bring up any issues that they might have. And the reason that I did that is because this piece of property, I view it as a pretty fragile piece of property. Due to the wetlands, Wiley Brook goes through the lot, and so I thought that there would be issues that might be brought up by planning board members, but nevertheless, you decided that you wanted to submit the application, and that certainly was within your purview. The other issue that I brought up during that meeting was having a conservation subdivision, which would be with the lots closer together, surrounded by open space. And our regulations, because of the lot size, do not require you to do that. But did you consider that?
We certainly considered it and looked at it, but it just didn't seem to be as viable approach for the specific, and part of that is due to the nature of the wetlands. Our surveyor had to work hard to make sure that we were in full compliance with the soil densities and the wetland requirements and the percent of each of these lots that is buildable and not restricted by those ways. And so every lot in this subdivision application meets all of the requirements for both wetland density, for soil densities, and all of the other technical requirements in that field. But that is something we did consider, but ultimately decided that we needed just to proceed under the standard subdivision ordinance.
Okay, thank you. The other issue that came up, and it has also come up during the planner's review, is the fact that you are considering a driveway that would serve 3 lots. And actually that driveway is shown on sheet 1. It's not called the driveway, but it's 30 feet wide, and during the TRC meeting, we did have conversations about that access way. I'm concerned about that because I believe it would need a bridge, and it would need to cross wetlands. So it seems to me that, and I don't know, we don't have any other details about that, but it seems that may need an approval from our wetland overlay zone, and have the Conservation Commission take a look at the application. So, and I don't know if the planner wants to weigh in on that, but I don't know how we can move ahead without that information in front of us.
Would you like me to comment? Okay. At this time, they're only proposing subdivision. They're not proposing development. So it's likely that when development is proposed, they would need to comply with the wetland overlay district. But this is just creating the lots.
Okay, but if you can't get to a lot, I mean, generally, subdivisions show how you access lots. That's, I mean, we need to determine if it's a safe access way. So, I mean, we need to, before we can approve anything, we need to know how the lots are going to be accessed.
And Chairman Bernard, I hear what you're saying, and I understand your concerns, and it's certainly something that we have already begun consideration of. But under the zoning ordinance, what is required is that each lot have access to the road, 400 feet of frontage, and that any access that's going to be necessitated by a shared driveway have a 30-foot access easement. And so we've already begun conversations with DES. We are working with them. We don't have final plans as to a bridge, but we are absolutely going to comply with whatever permitting or requirements that are needed in order to get that finalized. But those are not things that are required for the initial subdivision of land, because we meet all of the requirements under the zoning ordinance for the subdivision of these 4 lots. And so I hear your concerns. Obviously, we are very concerned and want to make sure that we can get to these 4 lots, and we've begun those conversations with DES. And any bridge, if that's the route that we end up going, will be done in full compliance with any DES permitting requirements or the town of Wolfeboro or the Conservation District requirements as they exist. And so I hear the concern, but I would urge that that is not something that is required at this point for a subdivision of land into these 4 lots.
Okay, well, it is shown on the plan.
And yes, absolutely. So we have marked in an easement there. Initially, we actually thought that we were going to need to specify with the municipal electric department as well exactly where we were going to put the electric easement. We have actually already worked with them and executed an electrical easement in their favor, and we have just decided and gone the route of a blanket easement across the whole property. So wherever they end up putting that line, that will be the place that they have easement rights to. And then, the language of that is stuff that was sent from them to us, and we reviewed it. Everything looks good. We've signed it and sent it back to them. We will try to record that before the final Mylar for this subdivision, just because, generally speaking, it's better to get the easements in place before we kind of subdivide the lots. It just simplifies the process a little bit. That is a very viable option for where we might put the driveway. But again, we will work with DES and we will work with DOT to make sure that we have the proper driveway requirements, whether that's a shared driveway with up to 3 lots, which is what the subdivision ordinance allows, or if it's separate driveways where they're possible. We'll make sure that whatever we end up doing will fully comply with DOT and any other permitting requirements that the town or state requires.
Madam Chairman.
Okay, hang on just a sec, please. 174-9C1 talks about the sewage disposal. I mean, I see the wells, and it says all proposed subdivisions must comply with New Hampshire DES subsurface disposal standards, and that's in our regulations, and it seems that we need to know where those where the septic systems are, especially with all the wetlands and setbacks. And so I've got some concerns about that. You mentioned easements. Generally, when we're reviewing subdivision, we see the easements, and we know that they exist. We know what's needed, because what we're supposed to be doing with subdivisions is making sure that in the future there won't be any issues for future property purchasers. I mean, I know you all are, this is a family, but it may not be like that forever. We don't know. So it's kind of our job to make sure that all of the lots have been reviewed, and easements, proper easements are in place, and things of that nature. So, I mean, I see missing pieces that concern me. The other thing, and this is more to Tavis, and the drainage section, you said that we don't have to consider that. I really think that we do. And that's under G2, I think it's G2B, where it talks about natural water courses. Where a development is traversed by a natural water course, a stormwater easement or drainage right-of-way shall be provided. And I don't see that, and I think it's required, especially in this case. I mean, Wiley Brook goes, I think it goes through the whole property. It's sort of hard to tell. I mean, this is what we had to look at.
Correct, and Wiley Brook does.
And I know we have a big copy, but it was hard to see where Wiley Brook ends up, but I think it goes right through to the other side.
It goes all the way through, Madam Chairman.
And so it seems that section of the subdivision regulations needs to be addressed. Okay, go ahead, Mike. I know you have a question.
Madam Chairman, may I address some of those concerns?
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I must respectfully disagree on many of those points, because while I understand the concern of those, most of those are properly addressed through various permitting issues, permitting requirements. The requirement for stormwater drainage specifically under the ordinance is only for developments. It's not for subdivision, and the ordinance uses those two words differently and in different places because it's a significant difference. There's no requirement at the point of subdivision that lots would ever be developed. And so, for example, Lot 4, we have no plans to develop Lot 4. And the subdivision ordinance does not require that we have plans to develop Lot 4. It's simply a subdivision of land. And because we don't have specific development requirements at that point, any development that we do will have to be subject to all of the proper permitting requirements. And so that addresses, and the same thing with any of the wetland issues. We have one of those maps that we've submitted is a detailed wetland map that was performed by a wetland scientist. So we have all of the information needed. And if at the point that we are going to be ready to submit site plans and building plans for the houses that we plan to put on there, that will have to all meet all the requirements for those buildings. It'll have to meet the codes. It'll have to meet the wetland requirements. And that's the same for the septic systems. That's going to have to be permitted through, I believe, through the town and through New Hampshire DES. And so all of those things are going to be insured. But that's part of a separate process than just the subdivision of land. And it would be an overstepping for this board to think that those have to be done at this point, because that would be putting a burden on a subdivision that is not in the ordinance on its face.
Okay,
Madam
well,
Chairman.
all I'm looking at is the subdivision regulations. That's all I read to you. I didn't invent anything.
Correct. But the subdivision regulations are the ones that distinguish between a subdivision and a development. And the stormwater drainage requirements would only be in place for a development plan. And so again, you understand the reason for these kinds of things is if a subdivision is going to be a developer that's coming in and he's going to subdivide out 20 lots and there's going to be parks and asphalt, those are things that we've got to consider, because if you don't, you can end up with problems where neighbors are getting flooded because they didn't think about where the water is going to be going. We're affecting this land at basically zero at this point until we get site plans for what we're going to be doing to build. That's when we will have to evaluate what the impact of the building of the site plans will have, and then make sure that we follow and adhere to every applicable code and ordinance, which we will do. And so I understand your concerns. I understand your what you're looking at, but I respectfully disagree that those are things that are needed at the site plan or at the subdivision of land level, which is what we're here for tonight. We're simply asking, because we meet all of the requirements of the subdivision ordinance for the subdivision of these 4 lots in a rural or in a residential agricultural district, that this board approve the subdivision of the 4 lots.
Okay, thank you.
I'll defer to Terrace.
Which mic is closer at this point? So to that end, to be helpful to the board, it's not that you're not looking at septic compliance or DES compliance for septic systems, but the subdivision regulations are, I'll say, generalized enough that the board can look at it at different levels. So, the applicant has talked about different types of subdivisions. One where you might be proposing a road or a private road, and on that road you're going to have associated roadway drainage and a series of curb cuts, and the planning board would be evaluating how each of the proposed lots is discharging or not discharging to that right-of-way within part of that system. Each of those lots, there are instances in town where you'd have town water but private septic, or full water and septic. So the subdivision regulations are generalized enough, to use that term, to allow the planning board to adjust appropriately. So when it comes to sewage disposal, 174.9C it talks about all subdivisions must comply with NHDES subdivision, subsurface disposal standards for subdivision approval. Well, what does that mean? If you know where all the houses are going to go, if you're looking at a multifamily housing project on a series of lots, you would know exactly where the structures are going to go. You would have an idea of how many bedrooms are going to be in each of those units, and they'd be able to size the septic accordingly. The way the regulations speak to this is actually back at 174.9A 2B, which get specifically into wetlands when you're looking at a subdivision that has type B hydric soils on it. And that allows the planning board some guidance by providing that in lots that have type B hydric soils, the applicant needs to demonstrate 20,000 square feet, which is, quote, sufficient in size and configuration to adequately accommodate all housing and required utilities such as sewage disposal and water supply to include setbacks, end quote. So on the second sheet of the plan set you have in front of you on each of the 4 lots, you'll notice a 20,000 square foot area, and in which are the 2 test pits. And that is how the applicant and their engineers have shown compliance with the ability of the lot to locate a well, a septic system, and adequate upland area for a house, i.e. a buildable area on each of the 4 lots, or each of the 3 proposed lots. And then to the other point that has been discussed, the only easement in this case, you brought up the question of having all the easements in place to review. The applicant can't really provide that yet because the town hasn't agreed to what that easement is going to be, specifically what the easement is. So the recommended condition when we get there is that town council review the easement to make sure.
The easement I was talking about was shown on sheet 1, which looks like a 30-foot road or whatever you want to call it.
Well, correct. It's stated as a
That crosses other lots.
Correct, but it's not called an easement there. It's shown as 30 feet because 30 feet complies with the general requirements for the easement. But the language of that easement hasn't been established yet because they're waiting for the town to sign off on it.
All I'm saying is that generally we have seen those, and that's the type of information that you need in order to protect future purchasers. Or that's what I have always been led to believe, so that's why I brought it up. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Marbury, did you take counsel before you came to this board tonight on a presentation of this application, the requirements the board might have for you that you might not be familiar with, the nature of the land that you're asking to subdivide or not?
What do you mean by take counsel?
Well, ordinarily, when we have a subdivision of this sort in this kind of a location, the presenter is somebody who's either an engineer or a wetland scientist, someone who knows the ground, the types, and the sorts of questions that the planning board is likely to be interested in asking, none of which you have addressed and none of which we have, apart from the chairwoman, had a chance to ask. I'm only asking that for this reason, that if this were my application, I would not be presenting it in this way tonight. I don't think this application is complete. I think there are some unresolved questions, many of which the chairwoman presented to you, which really need to be resolved before this board can safely, in the interests of the town, make a decision to approve or not. I also would say, as an aside, it usually isn't safe to tell a board that you believe that it is overstepping in the course of an application for an approval for a permit. It's just not politic. It's not taken well by this board. Just as an aside, there are several problems I have with this application, and I'll go through them, and they basically run down to 4. The electric department easements, I want to see where they are. I want to see a document that says that they exist, so that if we do approve this application, and in some time, 50, 100, 200 years from now, the lots are sold out of your family to somebody else, that buyer will know that those lots were approved as building lots with the full knowledge of where the easement ran for the protection of future buyers. The plans that you submitted to us I presume they exist in a larger format. The 11 by 17 format that we have here is difficult to read. I went through them very, very carefully. I noticed that the wetland scientist did a good job of flagging the property and noting what he found, but I don't see his analysis, his analytical report anywhere presented. I would like to have known what the New Hampshire Natural Heritage Bureau had to say about the presence of species on the lot, where they might be located, where any of them were that were important to the state or not important to the state. I would have liked simply to have gotten the proper full certification from the wetland scientist. We usually get them in an application for a site plan review. This is, given the area in which this subdivision is intended to be placed, I would submit more important even to the town's welfare than the approval process for a site plan review application. On your map, you show on one lot, I think it's number 1, the presence of a little bit of a prime wetland. And the rest of the lot is threaded by the thread of Willie Brook, which kind of meanders all over the place. It's an extremely sensitive piece of property. I don't detect anywhere in the application a sensitivity to the sensitivity of the area. To say that you're going to apply for a DES wetlands crossing and a stream crossing permit, of course you will. Everybody knows that. You can't do it unless you get one of them. But you're talking about a brook which comes off of a prime wetland, threads through the entire piece of property that your family owns, continues on, and eventually empties into Wentworth. Whatever is done on your property, good or bad, eventually winds up in Wentworth, on which the economy of this town depends, as well as the big lake. It's a very sensitive area, but I don't get a sense that this application is sensitive to that. And finally, and I thank you for your patience, you have to show access to the 4 lots for us to be able to say you can have a 4-lot subdivision. These are now buildable lots. Go forth and sin no more. And the only access that you've shown us is a rather sketchily hand-drawn line or two connecting the 4 lots in a meandering fashion, said to be 30 feet wide, with no indication of how it's built, its cross-section, whether it's going to be up to town standards or not, whether the fire department can get an emergency piece of equipment to Lot 4 should somebody ever build down in Lot 4. It's hard for us, it's actually impossible for me to proceed with this application unless I know what sort of road that is, whether it can take a fire truck, whether it can take a fire truck in the wintertime. Right now, all I can see is 2 lines on the road. They have a fairly steep upgrade from 4 to 2, and then a stream crossing, and then a fairly steep upgrade again to Route 28. But I don't know whether they're going to be dirt, gravel, paved. How can I, in good conscience, approve Lot 4 when I don't know how people are supposed to get from Lot 4 to 28 and back again, especially in an emergency? I'm stymied.
So I appreciate your comments. Thank you for that. Respectfully, the lines that are drawn on there in that 30-foot wide thing, those aren't hand-drawn meandering lines. Those are engineered drawn line with specific meets and calls on every side to specify exactly where that potential easement would be. The specific language of an easement for access is something that we will at some point get to. But I posit that is not a requirement for the subdivision of land. The requirement is that it have 400 feet of frontage onto Route 28 there.
Then show me how each one of your lots connects to Route 28. If you're going to rest your case on having frontage on 28 for access to each of the 4 lots, show me how each one's going to get to 28. separately.
So-
If you're going to have a joined access across the road that you have drawn on this map, hand-drawn or engineered, however you want to put it, it doesn't tell me what kind of road that is, you're going to have to show me a cross-section.
Well,
And the
but
regulations
respectfully-
do suggest 174-7D3 that I get some sense of what this road's going to be like. Our fire department assistant chief specified in his TRC review that he has some concerns about the road. He'd like to know what it's going to be.
And I understand.
So would I.
Say
And
what, I'm
I
sorry.
really have a hard time approving a subdivision application when I don't know what kind of access Lot 4, 3, and 2 are going to have on this road.
So again, I have to reiterate that I respectfully disagree because number one, this is not a street. This is not a road. This is a driveway if it's going to end up being there. And I can candidly tell you that our plan is to do a shared driveway for those 3 lots. But the specifics of it, the language of the easement, we still need to craft. And that's all an acceptable thing under the subdivision ordinance itself.
Mr. Marbury, I'm going to interrupt you if I may, and I won't interrupt again, and I will defer to the rest of the board after this. Are you aware of a street in town called York Road? It's a private road. It's a dirt road. This board approved a house lot down the end of York Road, which caught fire one year, and a fire truck tried to get down and got bogged down and had to be pulled out. This board has learned that we do not approve paper roads, essentially, without some idea of whether or not our emergency equipment can get up and down them. And I do rest on 1747D3, which says specifically, final road profiles and cross-sections are required. And if you want to call this a driveway, you can call it a driveway, but to me, it's an access point, and I need to know what kind of access these lots are going to have to 28. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Other questions?
I would like to suggest that, first of all, I really like the idea that this would be a family compound. And that, to me, is something that is a noble goal. At the same time, I have a hard time figuring out how lots 3 and 4 would ever have access other than by crossing Willie Brook. And Mike ends up saying that the water drains into Lake Wentworth, and of course Lake Wentworth then drains into Lake Winnipesaukee and a Wolfeboro Bay. And so these are things that we need to be paying attention to. I like the idea. It's a wonderful thought. At the same time, I think that there are issues with how you end up accessing these lots. And it is true that according to the strict reading of the regulations, you can subdivide anything. At the same time, anybody who might buy one of those lots 100 years from now ends up having to deal with the issues which I think right now we are grappling with. And so I guess I would like to have more information moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Vaughn?
My turn. Yeah, I'm just uncomfortable with especially lots 3 and 4 because I feel uncomfortable approving a lot that I do not know that we would get a wetlands crossing to put a driveway on. I mean, we don't have permission to do that. So you would be creating paper lots that would be undevelopable unless we know that they're developable. And that makes me very uncomfortable.
Okay, thank you. Other comments, planning board members?
I have looked at this application, and I think I felt a lot of the same consternation that everybody else on the board has felt. Peter just said a key statement: you can subdivide anything. And then he said, I'd rather see some more information. What kind of information would you be looking for, Peter?
I'd be looking for the same things that Vaughn talked about, as in how you can access these lots. Yes, there's been DES application, or they're working with DES, but until you can actually get across Willie Brook to lots 3 and 4, they're not viable lots. And so therefore, to me, there is the issue that, I mean, if you look at the eastern end of lots 3 and 4, they are actually very close to Center Street. At the same time, I don't believe that there is enough room to build on them with enough setback from Center Street and from Willie Brook to actually make a viable building lot. I may be wrong in that. I don't really know. But here we're talking about 2 lots of this subdivision which have questionable ability to build on. And yes, DES has been approached, but until DES ends up making some statement, I think there's a real issue.
In addition, I think they'll need a special exception to get across Wiley Brook from the town, not just DES.
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
So, furthering this discussion, I looked at the Technical Review Committee staff notes, and on the second to the last page, it doesn't say who the staff member is, but it's further review requires, yes, we'll seek guidance from DES where to locate stream crossing, box culvert versus bridge, conservation subdivision, in the question marks.
Those comments were made by Lenore Clark. She came to the TRC meeting. She's the chairman of the Conservation Commission.
Okay, thank you, Lenore.
Okay.
So when I looked at the big picture here, I had to do a little hypothetical and say, okay, if these gentlemen come before us, it's been put in front of us because the planner feels that all the conditions have been met according to his professional guidance. That's one thing that I'm going to put out there. The second part is the gentleman is stating that it is just a divide up of land. There's the parcels that are in the back. If they divide them up and the guy next door wants to buy them, he can come from the side and access them just as easy. Not to say that they're not going to do that, but it may add other stuff to that type of land area that we're not seeing right in front of us. I agree, when you go to the bottom corner on the right, Willie Brook is there, but as the applicant says, they met the requirement of the more than 300 feet of road frontage. From the testimony the gentleman and the applicant is giving us, he seems to be quite confident that the family is going to do the right thing in the next step that's required of them. To this point, I think they've met the requirements that they've been asked, and I digress with my other committee members, but I honestly would think that if we were challenged in a court of law, we would probably lose if we did deny this case. So for that, I'm going to let the rest of the committee speak.
Okay, I don't think anyone has said anything about denying it. We've talked about items that we think that we need in order to approve the subdivision. Brad, did you have any questions or comments?
I guess I'm just kind of wrestling with the notion of, you know, the front page is showing the shared driveway coming through lots 2, 3, and 4 there. I like the concept of it because that way you're only crossing Willie Brook once to get to lots 3 and 4, instead of coming in off of Center Street and doing individual crossings, you have much more of an impact on the wetland there. The fact that these are all over 5 acres and they have the frontage requirement on there, that's the part I'm wrestling with as to whether we have the ability to get hung up on the fact that there is a shared driveway kind of shown there without any detail on it. Because I think as John kind of said, that on its own merits of the straight subdivision, these lots meet the requirements. And each lot, as they do get developed, would have to come back to the planning board for the special exception to cross the wetlands and stuff to get to the backside to do the development, because that's where lots 3 and 4 are. That's where their 20,000 square foot footprint is, that they can put in a well and septic and develop the land there. So that'd have to be on the backside of the wetland. So I think I'm kind of with John here. I'm kind of feeling that it does meet the intent of the subdivision ordinance. And we would definitely be able to see details further down the road when and if they go to develop the property and to put in, we'd have our say then at the access, what the cross sections are, fire department and stuff would be able to sign off and look at the details then to feel how they have access into the properties for emergency purposes and stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at with it anyway. You know, I kind of feel it stands on its own for the subdivision being 5 acres. Lots all have 400 feet of frontage. You know, some of these other factors don't get involved, like the form factor and things like that don't seem to apply here because we're over the 5 acre minimum here, so.
Well, it complies with the form factor.
It does. But
Because
it doesn't need to.
It doesn't need to.
Right, that's what I meant, yeah.
So that's not an issue.
Right, that's, you know, those are some of the things of having these larger lots that it kind of, not kind of, but it does eliminate the need for some of those details that we would normally see.
My concern is that if the planning board goes ahead and approves this, as you all say, that we don't need any details, there's then a Mylar, those lots, and we have to put aside the fact that they're all owned by one family, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Those lots can then be sold. So I'm concerned, say, okay, so lot 4 is then could be sold. Well, oh, by the way, well, you got to get an approval for a bridge, and you have to get an approval for this crossing. How can we guarantee that that's going to happen but I mean, somebody's going to expect it to, because this is now a legal approved lot. And so that's what my concern is, that there are still steps here that in order to safeguard ourselves and future landowners that I think need to be addressed, and that's where I'm coming from.
Well, I would like to talk about that particular point, in that if you happen to buy lot 4, the question of how you access it is obviously something which would be associated with getting across lot 3 and perhaps lot 2. And so I think that in some ways that is buyer beware. And I think that in some ways what we need to be thinking about, or perhaps the owner needs to be thinking about, is the issues we have brought up as to whether these are realistic, and perhaps would like to, if we have these concerns, perhaps the owner would like to withdraw the idea. But if this is what he wants to do, the buyers of these lots in the future would have to just be aware of what they're doing, and the regulations which we have in the town and with the state of New Hampshire would protect against, I would assume, and I believe, it protect against the degradation of Willie Brook. So I'm conflicted in some ways. I'm sitting here saying, how do we deal with this? But it is a subdivision, and these are issues that the owner has to know and deal with. And so I don't know whether we really do have a legal way that we can end up saying you can't do it.
Okay, well, I mean, there are two issues in my mind. The access ways, how are you going to get to all these lots? And then the excessive amount of wetlands and the water course that runs through this property. As I said right at the very beginning, this is a very fragile piece of property from everything I know about it. And it seems that our regulations give us the authority to help protect the land and make sure that the setbacks are adhered to. Wiley Brook is protected and things of that nature. So,
Madam Chairman, if I may.
yep.
I share the same two concerns you do. One, the fragility of the area. And two, the access to all four of the lots across the common driveway. To address the first, would be an easy solution to get the wetland certification narrative, and then to ask the applicant to allow the Conservation Commission to, if they haven't already done so, walk the land and come back with their opinion of the applicant's solution to access all four of those lots by this common driveway. That would go a long way to relieving my mind. As far as access is concerned, I really don't feel it's safe for this board to approve a 4-lot subdivision whose access is shown on a plat in a sketchy fashion without any indication of whether or not that access road can bear the weight of emergency vehicles. We're being asked to create 4 building lots, two of which we cannot be sure that emergency vehicles can actually get down there based upon what we've been presented with. I'm not sure if there's a legal requirement for lots 3 and 4 to have an easement to pass across that driveway from lot 1. Maybe it does, I don't know, and lot 2, for example, as well. But the easement, the access point is the sticking point. And had the applicant solved that before he came here tonight, we wouldn't be having this discussion. If the applicant had shown a sensitivity to the sensitivity of the area and had solved the access way, we might be moving on to the next agenda item at this point. So I'll say it again, it's my opinion, the applicant should withdraw the application at this point, or we can simply rule it incomplete, solve the problems, and come back again and get a smoother hearing.
Okay, well, we do have the authority to ask for more information, and that's under 174-10. And one of the things that we could ask for is an environmental impact analysis. But actually, I would be comfortable if the Conservation Commission took a look at this and gave us their thoughts.
Yeah, I didn't want to suggest an environmental impact analysis because that would run to considerable expense on the applicant's part.
I wasn't suggesting
I understand you're not.
that.
I think that the Conservation Commission's assessment would be adequate for our requirements here.
May I ask a question, make a comment about that question? Because I can assure the board that my family and I are not insensitive to this. We bought this land because we value the notion of raising our children with a woods to explore. All right? We love this property. We love the idea of it. We love the brook. We have no intention to do anything that would harm this. But the reality is that I don't think this board has to rely on my intention here, because the state of New Hampshire and the town of Wolfeboro has absolutely sufficient and adequate laws in place to ensure that anything we do as far as a development of this property, including the driveway and any development of our houses, are going to meet and have to comply with all applicable ordinances, both state and local. And so I hear these concerns. I understand it. My only issue is that these are not things that must be addressed and that even are appropriate to require to be addressed at the subdivision of land step, because they will be addressed. We cannot cross Wiley Brook without the proper permitting from DES or in any other way that complies with all of the requirements the town and state would impose. And we have no intention to do so. And so our plan is that we would be building on these lots within the next year. We're not going to, our intention is not to have a lot that will sell to some unsuspecting buyer. Our plan is to build houses here. And so we are going to ensure that there are proper easements in place and access. And all of that will be done according to proper code and permitting processes. But I simply posit that those are not requirements that are proper to impose and require at the subdivision level.
Mr. Marbury, I'll just read this to you. 17410, independent studies and investigations. A, the planning board reserves the right to require additional studies. 3, the environmental impact statement specifications will be dictated on a case-by-case basis. We do have that authority. We're not exercising it because it would probably be onerous. But bringing in the Conservation Commission would seem to satisfy this board's concern for the environmental impact of your proposed subdivision.
I guess
Tavis has a comment.
Okay, well, I'm concerned about the sheet 1 that shows the access way. That means that that's what we're approving, and so that's why I'm hung up on that issue. But it doesn't show up on the other sheets, and I was scratching my head as to why when I was trying to review this, and so that's an issue that you put it, not you, but it was put on your plan. So okay, so that's one of the things that if this is approved, that's what we'll be approving. And those are the details that I think Mike and I seem to be concerned about. Go ahead, Tavis.
I just wanted to suggest for the board to consider 17410A3. An environmental impact statement would not be staff's recommendation. I'm not suggesting it was the planning board's recommendation. But such an environmental impact analysis would be based on subdivision, not on development of the lots.
That's what we're talking about. Aren't we talking about a subdivision at this point, not a development of the lots?
Correct. We're talking about putting 4 lines on the ground.
Exactly. Well, no, we're not putting 4 lines on the ground, Tavis. That's a misunderstanding, in my opinion. The 4 lines on the ground will become building lots.
They might be. I don't think the board has enough information to know exactly what's happening on all 4 of the lots.
If we put those 4 lines down on that ground, we are creating 4 building lots.
We're creating 4 parcels in the residential agricultural zone,
which can be built upon.
In accordance with the regulations.
Correct. They're building lots. And it's clear there's a 20,000-foot envelope on each one of those 4. He's done a very good job in getting that done.
Because that's required in the subdivision regulations. He has to show it to get the lines.
If this was only 4 imaginary lines on a lot that exists, then we're just playing games. There's a reality here.
I don't think so at all. I think that it's this entire body of the subdivision regulations that apply. The comment was made earlier that staff had made a recommendation that the application is complete and therefore supportive of the application. What I'm suggesting is that they have, in staff's opinion, that the application requirements outlined in the subdivision regulations have been complied with. That's why it's in front of you this evening. I've had a lot of conversation this evening that is related specifically to development of specific lots, which I do see as separate and distinct from the subdivision regulations. So I'm not trying to belittle the subdivision regulations by talking about lines on the ground, but we also have no information that tells us exactly what is going to happen and when on each of the 4 lots.
All right, I'll continue the argument on the hypothetical, if I may, Madam Chairwoman. Okay. If you look at the physical layout of the 4 proposed lots, in particular, lot number 4. Lot number 4 has essentially no access to Route 28 except by this imaginary driveway permit, unless it gets multiple stream crossings from DES. Lot number 3, again, has to get access to 28 in the same fashion. Otherwise, it's going to be facing not only stream crossings, but driving road uphill, fairly steep slope.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry,
can I just suggest that the issue here, as Tavis points out, is that these are lots which are being created, and they do meet the subdivision regulation. If lots 3 and 4 are ultimately unbuildable because they don't have access to them, then anybody who buys those lots or has those lots, the buyer beware. You know, the idea that lot 4 needs to have access going through 1, 2, and 3 indicates that that may be a tall order. And so I think, as the applicant suggested, lot 4 may never be built on. You know, that's very real. And so I worry about the idea that, as Tavis suggests, this is just a subdivision, and the fact that we are looking at you know, how they're actually going to use these lots is perhaps improper. At the same time, I would worry, or I would suggest to the applicant that some of this may be pipe dreaming, and it may end up being better to have 3 lots rather than 4, or some other dividing of this this piece of property, so that it is more buildable and easier to deal with. But that's not my my ability to say. But I think that the idea that you have a lot which DES and perhaps the Wolfeboro Planning Board is not going to approve access to, that's not our problem. That's something that the applicant needs to deal with, rather than what we need to look toward the future.
Madam Chairman.
It has always been my understanding that once a subdivision is approved by a planning board, that those are then legal lots that can be sold and built on. That has been my understanding of land use and subdivision regulations. So that's where my concern is. What?
Would you like me to move the question regarding completeness of the application?
I was going to find out if people are comfortable with having the table this and have the Conservation Commission ask them to review it and get their comments back to us.
Is this what we do in a hearing, or is this something we do after the hearing's closed?
Well, we're not anywhere near closing the hearing. We haven't even accepted the application yet.
Okay, that's fine.
I was just trying to make sure that everybody, I mean, it sounds like most of you have all the information you need to accept the application. I still think it's important to hear from the Conservation Commission at the very least, and get their thoughts and ideas.
I don't
So-
think we can hold the application up for that.
Okay, well,
I don't think it's a
that's,
requirement.
it says that we can require additional studies.
Yes, we can, that's true.
And so it certainly seems that we're not holding anybody up.
No,
We're simply trying to get enough information so that we can move ahead.
do we want to move this application to the question of completeness or not? Or do we want to give the applicant a chance to withdraw it and present it in a more complete fashion, or whatever you prefer?
If somebody wants to make a motion, or the applicant wants to,
I would make a motion that we accept this application as complete.
okay, motion has been made to accept the application as complete. Somebody want to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to accept the application as complete. I'll do a roll call vote. Peter Goodwin,
Yes.
Von Dugan,
Yes?
Mike Hodder,
No,
John Thurston,
Yes?
Brad Harriman,
Yes.
Julie Jacobs.
Yes.
Okay, Kathy Barnard, I vote no. But the application is accepted as complete, so I can now open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public listening in? I don't see anyone.
I don't see anyone either, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Okay.
Suzanne Ryan seems to be on.
Excuse me?
Suzanne Ryan is in the bottom of my screen.
Yeah, I see her there.
Yes, I'm observing. Yeah, I'm observing. Can you clarify, is this the parcel that the Alzheimer's development was going to go on?
no, it is not.
No. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Did you want to say anything further, Mr. Marbury?
I have nothing further at this time, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any conditions that you wanted us to consider?
Yes, I can do that. I was going to say something else. I was just going to remind the board that if you were going to ask for more information from Conservation, you would not want to close the public hearing.
Well,
I'm not suggesting you were ready to close the public hearing either. I'm just saying that that's a key step not to.
okay, well, it seemed by accepting the application as complete that everyone felt that we didn't need that.
Oh, I was going to recommend that if the board wanted to ask for more information, you would need to accept it as complete in order to continue the public hearing to a date certain. So that's the procedural step there, if you were going to ask for more information.
And is any board members interested in getting comments from the Conservation Commission?
As a
Yes.
condition.
I would be interested in having the Conservation Commission add, and it may be that at a point in the future, the applicant will have more information for us.
To what
To
point
do
would the
what?
Conservation Commission be commenting on this application? Just so
Be
that we...
commenting
so
on
that
the
we-
possibility of road crossings and also wetland issues.
So that would make us feel good after the fact? Is that the idea? Because it's not going to affect, if this board votes to approve, it's not going to affect the decision at all. It's not going to be a condition subsequent to the decision. It's not going to be a condition prior. It's only advisory.
Okay, Tavis is suggesting that we keep the hearing open to get those comments.
If you want to go down that path, I mean, I don't think it necessarily appropriate to surmise what Conservation may or may not say. I also don't know what timeline the applicant might be with regard to discussions with DES. I'm going to go through the conditions that I put in the staff review, and then if you'll bear with me, I have some other
Just a second, I was right in the
ideas.
middle of asking everybody if they wanted to Conservation Commission.
I understand, but where I was going with the end of my sentence was, at the end of those conditions, I have some other conditions that might assist the board in moving forward.
Okay, but if we're going to ask the Conservation Commission for comments, we need to keep the hearing open, so we don't need the conditions.
Okay.
At this point. So how do you folks, Peter, it seems that you're saying, I'm not sure what you're saying. Did you say yes, you wanted to hear from Conservation?
It may be useful, and it may be, if we continue the hearing, the applicant will have more information to reinforce his position. And it may end up being something that says, okay, yes, this is a viable subdivision.
Vaughn, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I would like to hear from the Conservation Commission, and especially regarding the crossing of Willie Brook. I mean, I heard the box culvert mentioned, you know, or would they like some kind of an elevated structure to protect the sensitive water course there? Just so that the applicant especially knows that he's going to have to get additional approvals from not only the state, but from the town regarding the type of crossing, where it would be crossed, you know, how much impact that they would have on the wetlands and the wetland setback. Because at this point, I see 2 undevelopable lots, which is, he seems fine with, but I'm not comfortable with them.
Okay, thank you. John?
I am a little apprehensive due to the case law that I've read in the comments supplied by a Conservation Commission cannot be the basis for the board making the determination. The determination needs to be based on the board's facts and not the conservation's facts. That's the case law that I've read. So I wouldn't be supportive, because I know that later on those conservation comments would be relevant to the further applications, and I'd look to see them applied then.
Okay, thanks. Brad?
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to definitely hear from the Conservation Commission when the next phase of this comes in, when they go to access the back of this property here. That's when they're going to have to come in to get for the crossings of Willie Brook and the wetlands there. And I think that's at the appropriate time, in my opinion, as to when the Conservation Commission should be weighing in, because that's what their comments are going to be about, is going to be about the wetlands crossing. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, you know, we're looking strictly at, you know, creating, you know, approving or looking at possibly approving a subdivision here of 4 lots. Not really getting into the details of how they're going to access them yet. But that will have to come before us at a later date. And when that time comes, in my opinion, that's when the Conservation Commission should be, input should be weighed in on.
Oh, okay, so you'd rather wait. Okay.
Yep.
And Julie?
I really think that we have to look at just what's here, which is a 4-lot subdivision. That's all that this is for, and nothing else. I don't think that we're supposed to look past the table into the future. I got caught in one of those.
Well, do you want the Conservation Commission, or?
They're off the table. All we're being asked to do is look at a 4-lot subdivision. Nothing past that into the future, which that would be the Conservation Commission and other things. I think that we're overreaching.
Oh, okay. Mike?
I think Conservation Commission's comments at this point are irrelevant.
Okay, and yeah, I do too. I don't know why that would be a negative.
So I have a question. Something came up in the comments that it was a 3-lot shared driveway was the maximum.
Yes.
And I see 4.
Well, that was another issue I was going to bring up, Vaughn, because it does look like 4. You're talking about the developed lot plus,
Right.
yeah, right.
My questions were all about access and future permitting, and that's just one right off the top. If you can't have 4, then 3 is the maximum.
Right. Yeah.
May I address that, Chairman?
It does look like the developed lot is sharing that. whatever.
Understood, and I can assure you that there's no intention, nor would we ever put 4 houses on one driveway for this. If in the future that 4th lot were to ever be built, if we desired to, or if we were to sell it to somebody, it would be with the understanding, because that's the law and the legal requirement, that that 4th lot would have to have a separate driveway that complied with all of the DEOT cut-ins, that complied with all of the town of Wolfeboro permitting requirements. And no, I agree, there's a limit of
Okay.
three lots that can access a
But you do
driveway.
understand that the plan seems to indicate that. That's all I'm bringing to your attention.
And so I would
Can I
off the
make
top
a
of my head, I would
recommendation?
agree with the condition that specifies that this is approving only the maximum as permitted under the law of 3
Of 3 lots.
buildings, 3 houses being accessed by a shared driveway. Because
Okay.
that's absolutely, no question about that.
Okay, thank you.
So could I ask the planner a question? Would it be prudent to remove the road area on sheet 1 and to leave it blank, and then they don't get into this is where it is, we were nailing them down. One of the conditions, they take that off when they submit this, and next time they come in front of us, they'll have the real deal. Should we?
Do I understand just that maybe the condition would be that the final Mylar approved, the additional approved subject to that drawing, that roughed-in easement area be removed entirely? Is that the idea?
I'm trying to ask that question whether or not it's complicating everybody's decision while it sits on that paper and gives a false impression, and if it doesn't need to be on there, could we remove it?
Well, but it was part of the TRC. It is part of the submittal, which is why it has been discussed. And, I mean, the applicant has indicated that this is one of their options.
Perhaps the board understands now why I suggested that the application be withdrawn without prejudice and fixed before presented to the board?
The
Well, then I'm-
question was originally posed to me. I believe what the engineer's intent was to be able to demonstrate to DOT that there would be one point of access to the developable area with regard to a DOT curb cut, i.e. that area between the paved travel lane and the property line. To John's point, perhaps it would be helpful to the board not to see the section of existing driveway that extends into that driveway easement. For practical purposes, what I see occurring is the existing curb cut, again, the area between the paved travel lane and the property line, serving as access to two driveways, one that goes to the existing home, and then a shared driveway that would continue to the other 3 lots. That's what at least this planner sees with that.
That is one way of looking at it, yeah.
Insofar as you're more than exceeding the parameters of the subdivision regulations that speak to driveway spacing along a state highway and putting it all at the current point of access. So the short answer, John, is yes. You could take the little dashed lines out and then have 2 driveways that split at the property line. So the shared driveway, should they choose to develop the shared driveway concept, would go to no more than 3 homes. And the condition that could be added to further add that paragraph in is that the driveway language, should it go there, be clear that it shall not extend beyond those 3 lots. In this case, lots 2, 3, and 4. What that does is set the stage to make it very clear in both the deed and on the ultimate plan that it is not a road, it cannot be a road, and it will not be a through road, it will forever be a driveway. The other condition that could be added is going back to 174.9 A, 2B, I know it's in here. The 20%, the 20,000 square feet is based on 4-bedroom houses. They would have to demonstrate more area if the houses were going to have more than 4 bedrooms. Now, clearly, there is more area to show. But that's something else that could be added as a condition if the board were so inclined.
Okay, well, right now, it seems that there are 4 of us that would like to have Conservation Commission review this and get back to us. So,
Well, that's fine. My only question is I don't know what they're reviewing because we don't know ultimately what's going to be developed.
Yeah,
well, they've got the plan that we're looking at.
But that's fine.
whatever conclusion the Conservation Commission is going to come up with is going to be advisory only, not dispositive.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be able to address access because that is essentially a problem to be solved by DES. At least the stream crossing part of it is. We have the problem of an application which at this point has more than 7 conditions, but I don't have any idea how many more because no one's been recording them. I've heard at least a couple. It's a very messy application, Madam Chairman.
Okay, well, Mr. Marbury, right now, it seems that there are 4 members that would like to have the Conservation Commission take a look at the property, take a look at the lots, and get back to us with some advisory comments. And so, basically...
I didn't hear that.
Excuse me?
I didn't hear 4 votes for it.
Well, we haven't... I've got Vaughn, Peter, Mike, and myself.
I'm not interested in hearing from the Conservation Commission, Madam Chairman.
Oh,
I said their comments at this stage are irrelevant.
Oh, okay, all right. Sorry
They'll
about
come into
that.
play when special exceptions are being applied
Okay.
for,
Sorry,
but not
John.
at this stage. At this stage, it's up to us.
Okay.
And I think we have enough information before us to make a wise decision.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry, Mike. I thought...
One thing I would like to suggest is I believe that Tavis misspoke in that he was saying that the driveway would access, he said 2, 3, and 4, and I believe that it would access 1, 2, and 3.
No, I think he spoke correctly. Our intention is that Lot 2 will actually not be built. There will not be a house on Lot 2. The shared driveway would be for 1, 3, and 4. And if Lot 2 were to ever be built, it would need its own driveway that complies with all state and local laws.
You do not intend to build on Lot 2?
We do not. We have no plans to build on Lot 2. It's just Lot 1, 3, and 4.
Yet the plat that you're asking us to approve shows a building envelope on Lot 2?
We did that because a requirement to approve a 4-lot subdivision makes sure that every lot would have an appropriate building envelope. It has to have that 20,000 square foot. We have no plans to build on that at this juncture.
Okay,
but we had to put that in there or it wouldn't qualify as a lot.
And it is a building lot.
There is no building on Lot 2.
It is a building lot once the subdivision gets approved.
Sure, it would be possible as long as it had proper access, a properly permitted independent driveway, because we fully agree that lot would not qualify to share the other driveway, which already is maxed out at 3 houses on it. So it would need its own independent driveway.
I would feel more comfortable going forward with this if one of the conditions said, very plainly right on the Mylar or somewhere in the recorded package that these lots are not buildable until all state and town permits have been. I mean, I know it's obvious, but in this case, it should be right out there, especially the wetlands crossings.
Well, that's all assessed assumed, Vaughn. I mean, compliance with the law is assumed.
Okay, then we are at the point where we can go through and discuss conditions.
Conditions in the packet, starting with the standard ones. Condition number 1 refers to the 4 plan sheets that you have in front of you. Condition number 2, applicant submitting a Mylar. Condition number 3, applicant responsible for all fees. Condition number 4, all documentation submitted in the package, et cetera, part of the approval unless otherwise updated, et cetera, and the most restrictive applies. Number 5 is a recommended condition that favorable review of the final easement for municipal electric documents be completed by town attorney at owner's expense, applicant's expense. Number 6, applicant should be responsible for completing a certificate of monumentation. And condition, it would actually be subsequent to the Mylar or prior to issuance of any building permit approval or construction activity, would be New Hampshire Department of Transportation driveway permit for modification of existing driveway access or alternate driveways that should be permitted. If no permit required from DOT, applicant should present town with such notification in writing from DOT.
And then, are we going to add shall not extend past 3 lots? Number
That can be added. Applicant shall add a note to the plan and deed that any shared drive language shall so stipulate no extension beyond lot 4 as shown on plan.
Show what?
Any shared drive, if proposed, shall not extend beyond lot 4.
Well, there isn't anything beyond lot 4.
Pursuant to 174-9E1.
Oh,
Okay, so no extension beyond into a neighboring lot. That's fine.
okay, what about other easements? I'm still concerned that there should be an easement crossing these lots, but that doesn't seem to be a concern to anyone.
It was a concern of mine, but I suspect that we can get that in the site plan review because they will be back here for that. When they come back to us, for a special exception, for the wetlands crossings and for the building, and we'll be looking at easements at that point for access across the shared driveway.
I'd like to add that as a condition, even though I know it is part of our regulation that they have to come back for a special exception to use the right-of-way or easement as shown.
Yeah, I think
Because it goes right across Wiley Brook.
Well, they're going to have to do that, Vaughn, whether they like it or not. We don't really have to tell them that they have to do it. They know they have to do it. Don't they?
You folks want it in or out? I don't see any problem putting it in, but,
I don't see any harm in it.
right.
Applicant shall comply with town regulations when proposing a wetlands crossing?
Yes.
Or some such language.
Right.
Okay.
Is that a condition prior or subsequent?
Subsequent, because it's subsequent to the lots being created that they would be developed. So stipulating that they need to comply with the regulations is fine.
Okay.
Isn't it
You
kind of
with us so
advisory?
far?
I am, Madam Chairman.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Any other conditions? Anything else, Mike?
I'm just,
No, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
I'm thinking ahead just a touch here. You said the driveway bit was 3, lot 1, lot 3, and lot 4. Would it be smart at this point to ask for a driveway permit from DOT on lot number 2, just so that it is there on the lot now, even if it's never used?
My recommendation would be no, because you'd just be arbitrarily be placing a driveway.
Okay.
I mean, it
Yeah.
could make sense to put it in the middle, but if someone ultimately decided to buy the lot from someone else, 500 years from now and build over here, but the driveway is approved over here, they're then just going to reapply to DOT to move the driveway. So,
Okay, any other conditions, folks? Okay, entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion. We approve case number 2021-02, tax map 057-001 with conditions and amended conditions.
Okay, thank you. Motion has been made. Somebody want to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. I'll do a roll call vote. Von Dugan,
Yes.
Peter Goodwin,
Yes.
Mike Hodder,
No.
John Thurston,
Yes.
Brad Harriman,
Yes.
Julie Jacobs,
Yes.
Kathy Barnard. I vote no. I think this plan should have paid a little more attention to our master plan. I feel that very, very strongly. And that's basically, those are where my comments were coming from. I feel that the planning board we've adopted a master plan and we need to pay attention to it when we're looking at development projects. And it's a pretty basic thing. You simply add conditions to things in order to improve them and to make sure that our wetlands, in this case, are protected. So motion carries, and thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, ladies and
Thank you,
gentlemen.
Mr. Marwood.
And just so you know, I requested because I was having a hard time reading this, and I requested a colored map, and it sure would have been a little easier if we could have had that.
Understood, Madam Chairman. We did submit 5 of the full-size plats, so I don't know. And so we thought we had submitted. I don't think we have ever received a colored one, but I'm sorry, I did not receive that request, and so that may have been my oversight.
This is what we get, and you know it's hard to.
Next time.
Next time, yes, Madam Chairman,
Yes.
understood.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, if I may make a comment. I think the board, I feel very disappointed in the way the board has behaved tonight in voting to approve this application. I'm just going to make my own personal comment, and if I'm out of order, shut me down. This is one of the more sensitive ecological areas in town. It's in a complex that probably should have been included as a prime wetlands complex when they were first declared. Upstream it was, downstream it has been, midstream unfortunately not. I don't think this board did due diligence in protecting that part of town, and I just hope it doesn't come back to bite us in the butt later on. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
I'm going to defend my vote in the fact that I believe that it may be that, as I suggested earlier, that 1 or 2 of these lots is basically unbuildable because of regulations by DES and town regulations. And so therefore you can make a subdivision, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all those lots are buildable. And so I believe that the overlaying regulations of the state and town are going to protect that watershed. And I am somebody who lives on Lake Wentworth. I'm also on a water quality committee associated with the town for Wolfeboro Bay. And I believe that the protections will be there ultimately.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Okay. Moving on. Voluntary lot merger. We have 2 of those. Sorry about that, folks. I just got distracted. Okay. The first one is at 10 Aspen Lane. 187-085-000 and lot 187-084-000 for Barbara Weiss Living Trust. These are 2 lots down in the Port Wayland area, very small lots. Tavis, did you want to comment on this?
Yep, these are essentially 2 quarter-acre lots or 0.27 acre lots that are side by side. 18785 has a primary structure on it, and they're just looking at merging the two lots under common ownership. Neither one of them are current with regard to area or frontage, but they are getting incrementally better by merging them together. The recommended condition is that the applicant be responsible for recording the notice of merger.
Just one question, Madam Chairman. Is it the tax map lot 187 or 185?
187.
In both cases?
I'm just finding that myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Move to approve.
Okay, motion has been made to approve this lot merger. Anybody want to second?
I have a question about the number of structures in total that are on the lots now. Is it just the one house, or are there others?
My understanding is it's just one house
And the other lot, I believe, is vacant.
Right.
with a stream going through it, yeah.
Okay. Did somebody second that?
Not yet.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you.
Open up for discussion now.
Okay, I'll do a roll call vote for the lot merger. Von Dugan,
Yes.
Peter Goodwin,
Yes.
Mike Hodder,
Yes.
John Thurston,
Yes.
Brad Harriman,
Yes.
Julie Jacobs,
Yes.
Kathy Barnard. I vote in favor of the lot merger at 10 Aspen Lane. The next voluntary lot merger is at 153 Nary Shores Road, 201-056 and 201-057. This is for Craig and Carol Shepherd. One lot is waterfront, and the other lot is a back lot. Tavis, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, the interesting, couple of interesting things just to note on this. The shorefront residential line is well, 250 feet off the shore, which actually spans across Nary Shores Road. Nary Shores Road at that point really isn't much of a road, it's just a private access way. Any legal accesses and related permissions that go along with Nary Shores and that location are not affected by the merger. This is essentially just making two lots under common ownership be one lot, with the outside dimensions. Be a total of 1.5 or 1.46 acres, give or take, upon completion. Again, neither of them are conforming with regard to area or frontage. And again, the recommended condition is applicant being responsible for recording fees for the notice of merger.
Question for the planner.
Sure.
Once the merger is accomplished, about best of my recollection, best of my measurement rather, about 2/5 of it will be in the shorefront residential, the rest in the residential district, but more restrictive zoning will govern the entire lot. Is that correct?
More restrictive zoning applies 25 feet past the border.
It applies to what now?
25 feet beyond the district delineation. It does not encompass the entire parcel. Any development within the 250 would still apply, but the 250 rules do not apply for the entire parcel. They only apply within the 250.
So the zoning that we have specifically for the shorefront residential district, which may be different from the residential district, should now apply to the entire lot since it's been joined, and the more restrictive of the two zones governs. That's at least my understanding in the past.
Could you bear with me just a moment? This actually came up earlier today.
It's more an academic question than anything else. And I don't mean to hold the board up.
No.
Well, when a district boundary, this is 175-2B1. When a district boundary divides, zoning district boundary divides a lot of record existing as of March 12, 1963, the regulations for the less restricted portion of the lot apply to the more restrictive portion of the lot within 25 feet of the district boundary. For lots of record existing as of March 10th, 1992, which are divided by a district boundary line and lie partially within one of the designated commercial districts, and then it goes on. So that's why I said very early, It's within 25 feet. So the regulations for the less restricted portion of the lot shall apply to the more restricted portion within 25 feet of the district boundary.
These lots were created prior to 63 or post 63?
I would have to look into that to find when these lots were originally
Although
created.
we're actually creating a lot as of now, aren't we?
Effectively,
Yeah.
but I don't think, well, I'm not sure how relevant it is if the shorefront regulations apply beyond the 250-foot mark, because the majority of the regulations are with 50 and then 150.
Perhaps I can ask you to look into that and get back to me, since it's my question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Travis.
But this is an existing road, right, Mary? That goes-
Well, road is at that point is
Well,
an
it's an
embellishment.
access way to lots. Is
Yes,
that
it
correct?
is a means to access the lot, yes.
Okay,
The paved section, I mean, Nary Road, when it drops over the bank, I mean, you know this better than I do probably, you traverse a portion, then the pavement stops, and it gradually gets narrower and more rudimentary as you get toward this lot.
okay, but it's all going to be considered one lot, so if they want to put a garage up here, they can do that. as an
Correct.
accessory, even though there's a road. But we're now saying it's one lot.
It would be one lot, but what I was trying to say earlier is they still would not be able to build where that road is,
Yeah.
based on whatever is actually recorded for that road ism.
That road wouldn't display setback for orientation, would it? The road wouldn't display setback orientation for the house? Would it?
It's not a town road, it's probably,
But it's a private-
It's not a town road, and I don't know
Private
what the
road.
deed speaks to about it, but what I can say is if a structure were proposed, we'd have to
Private
evaluate.
roads need to adhere to setbacks.
it's probably a right-of-way.
So,
It's conceivable, it's also conceivable they could terminate that right, because it doesn't extend beyond them, it's only providing access to them.
Okay, that was my question. So
Correct.
if where the road comes to the left side of that property, where the split is through the middle and the split was disbanded, they could disband that portion of the road and not have any setback from that roadway through the middle of their lot.
Correct. When you look at the online tax maps, Nary Shores actually winds its way up through the lot to the right of the highlighted yellow section and connects into where Partridge is. But there is no deeded easement right-of-way or anything that makes that connection. And that was discussed actually when that new house, which is just to the right of the yellow outline piece, subject for tonight, came up, and it disappeared.
So is there no house on either one of those parcels?
56 has
there are
a structure on it.
there are houses on all of them, that's I mean, it's Nary Shore Road.
Well, I'm just saying, the two parcels that we're merging, there's a residence on the lower portion.
Yeah.
Correct, but not on the upper portion.
Move to approve?
Okay.
Seconded.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve the Nary Shore Roads merger. Von Dugan,
Yes,
Peter Goodwin,
Yes.
Mike Hodder,
Yes.
John Thurston,
Yes.
Brad Harriman,
Yes.
Julie Jacobs.
Yes,
Kathy Barnard, I vote in favor of the voluntary lot merger for 153 Nary Shore Road. Okay, next item, return of fees for Wolfeboro Camp School, $2,398.25.
As far as the staff review, obviously, this project is not something I'm familiar with at all, but what I can tell you, and all of your packet should have all of the backup information. They have gone as far as they're going to go with that approval. They understand that return of fees would stop any such approval. They are not planning to do any more work than they've already completed, and they are paid, any fees associated with their progress to date has been paid in full, and this is the balance. So staff's recommendation is return of the $2,398.25 plus any interest accrued.
I'll have to recuse myself here. I'm a director. Sorry.
So moved.
Okay, have they
Yes,
done
Peter.
have they done a final inspection and,
As my understanding, they are up to date and current with everything that they have completed thus far.
okay,
So I have a question here. They said 50% of the leach field and one septic tank combos and frost fit footings for 2 cottages are there. What does the town have for a backstop where you have a half-installed septic field in an area that I don't know about? Are we supposed to see this thing through as a town? Isn't that what I thought that we got a security deposit for when somebody does a situation like this, that we would guarantee that it was either completed, or do they have to come and reclaim the area?
No, they did as much as they wanted to, which was only part of it. They paid the town the deposit owed for the part that they did put in the ground. They're not going any further. They want the remainder given back to them, and the project has been stopped. That's how I understand it.
Correct.
So we have no liability. We're giving back money to guarantee work that they do not intend to do. The work they did do, which they gave money for us, to us as a guarantee, we kept. We're just giving back the difference.
But how do we as a town support a place that says they're going to do something, they stop it halfway, and then they leave it unfinished? And it's to me, a septic system unfinished is a substantial area that
It's not being used.
Mike, life happens. Stuff has happened in the last couple of years. They just said, no, we can't continue with this project. At least they were upfront about it and said they abandoned it.
I understand that. I know that there was a lagoon out back out there where the septic was going before, and I was kind of hopeful that they were going to be able to remove the lagoon and have the septic go into a legitimate leach field.
It's all gone. I'm speaking now as a director of the camp school. It's all, the lagoon is gone, and this project is abandoned.
Okay, thank you, Vaughn.
okay, thanks, Vern.
Move to approve.
Okay. Brad is seconding.
I'll second it, and I just got a comment to make too before we go on. The way I understand this is, the 3,400 that was put in this is strictly for construction observation agreement. It wasn't for any type of bonding to make sure the project gets done, and if it didn't, we'd be able to take the funds and have the project done. This is strictly to have an outside engineer oversee the work that was done to make sure it met the codes that were needed at the time. With it not being done, not going to be, progressed anymore. I'm good with releasing the balance of the funds that aren't going to be used. So I just wanted to make that clarification, the difference between a bond and a construction
It was
agreement.
a construction of, okay.
So that's a good question, though. If there was, is there bond money to return also?
I don't believe there is a bond, no. The only money that we're carrying at this point is the construction observation agreement.
That's all they're asking for. If there's something else, they'll ask for it too, I'm sure.
Okay.
Or we'll get to keep it.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. I'll do a roll call vote. Vaughn is abstaining. Peter Goodwin?
Yes.
Mike Hodder?
Yes.
John Thurston?
Yes.
Brad Harriman?
Yes.
Julie Jacobs?
Yes?
And Kathy Barnard, I vote in favor of returning the fee of $2,398.25 to Wolfeboro Camp School. Okay, thanks, folks. Drive-through committee report. Mike, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll be brief because the time is getting on. You have all received a copy of the flyer proposed. We did what we said, what you told us to do. We indicated the results would be tallied with the tallied date, April 30, and that was going to be a public information forum on this issue to be held in June. That's what you asked for. That's what you got. If this board approves the appearance of this flyer, then the next step will be Kathy will be looking into how to get it out to the taxpayers of the town. What would be the best way of mailing it, least expensive. Once we have an idea of what the entire cost of the project is going to be, we'll come back to the board for an approval.
I did not get a copy of the flyer.
Yeah, okay, well, Tavis, can you, are you going to send it to him now?
Yes, I'm going to try and remember where I
okay.
found it, and then I can...
Sorry about that, Peter and Vaughn. Tavis is going to send it to you. Okay, and I also sent an email that had been sent to the office regarding the issue. I sent it to all of you just for your information. And a citizen was concerned why we keep bringing the subject up. And heard that from a couple of people, that they want to know that. And so, but we decided to, and so we're doing it, and off we go.
The beauty of it is when we're done with the process and we've heard from the public in the public forum and we've gotten responses back from the mailer, we will know for sure, finally and for all time, exactly what the town wants. And there can be no more coming up and saying, oy vey, oh my goodness, it's not the right way to do it, because we will have done it as best as anybody could possibly do it.
Okay, the next item is the master plan.
We need to get shall we get a vote on this? No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I figured we had done what they asked for. Okay.
Well, we did do what they asked for, but I want to be sure that the board feels comfortable with this. Not exactly the way it looks. I mean, we'll play with the layout, make it look prettier, but the content.
Well, I still haven't seen it.
I think he's still looking.
Okay, it's coming to you. Why don't we wait?
Yeah.
Vaughn, am I going to Gmail?
Yes.
Sent?
Okay, let me put off that vote until you folks receive it, and then we'll go back to that issue. The master plan implementation matrix.
Yeah, so what I did, the last time I tried to show it in terms of the spreadsheet, and we all remember how that didn't work out. So what I did was simply put together a bolded form from each of the chapters. I specifically did bullets as opposed to numbers because I didn't want to confuse or impose ordination of any goals. And I'm continuing to work with the committees as I hear from them as how they're working on their goals, et cetera. And I can add, modify, et cetera.
Okay, and you did meet with the Energy Committee?
Correct. I did meet with,
guidance?
yep, and those are on here on the first page.
Okay. All right.
Is everyone included in this now?
Pardon?
Is this everyone now? Are
Yes.
these all the chapters now? Okay.
Yes, it is. All the committees, yeah, it is. Okay, the next item is the charrette, and that we're going to hear from those folks.
To follow up where we were with the board, I reached out to Plan New Hampshire. They are willing to show up in person at no cost on the 16th to go through and be able to answer questions. And I have also reached out to Maggie Steer and invited her and through her the entire Heritage Commission to be able to participate on the 16th.
Thank you, Tavis.
Good. All right, any questions on that? Okay, planning board work plan. We all received a copy of that. Does anybody have any issues with it.
And I apologize, Madam Chairman, you asked me to move CIP up on the list, but these were already printed. So again, this is just a number of items, not any ordination of items, but I can move that up on the list.
Okay, didn't want us to forget about it, not that we could, but,
So if it's helpful, what I intend to do as these move forward, as, you know, let's just pick the lighting committee. As the lighting committee moves to making recommendations to planning board, I'm just going to set this up in a, I just lost it. You don't call it a table of contents. I'm going to be a...
Index?
Yes, an index format. And then to be able to add, thank you. I had the word until I went to say it, and it completely escaped me. I need an index.
It gets worse as you get older. Trust me.
By days.
I agree with you, Mike.
Thank you, Brad.
Well, I'm glad we were all able to make it to church on time tonight, so.
As long as we have a helper to tell us.
just one issue on the housing updates. You've got multifamily, inclusionary, elderly, and also there's affordable.
You can do affordable.
Yeah, there are four of them.
And
Okay,
I'm actively working on that.
So is everyone okay with this work plan?
Yeah, so can I make just a comment about the Conservation Subdivision regulations?
Sure.
It would be good to know, and I don't know if Tavis can do this or if we can solicit Matt to find out why people aren't using them. Is there not enough bonus? I mean, this last project would have probably been a great one, but there seems to be some impediment that is stopping everybody from using that format. So I'm wondering if we can get a summary of why we think it's not attractive.
I could pontificate at length this evening, but as it's almost 9 o'clock, I'm going to defer some time at a later meeting. I think there's a couple of illustrations that would help the board understand what the current conservation subdivision regulations are actually achieving. I think you actually preserve more land in some of these instances by going through a standard subdivision process. I know that sounds antithetical, but it actually works out that way mathematically. And I do have some recommendations for the board to consider on how to move forward with the conservation subdivision process that would be very inviting to individuals while maximizing land to remain in open space and or conservation. So.
Being in the Natural Resource Committee or part of the master plan, the issue really is associated with the fact that the present regulations do not really attain the goal that they set out to deal with. And in many ways, if you look at how some of those subdivisions were done, basically any land that they couldn't use, they put into conservation easement and got credit for it. And so it was, it didn't really work in really making conservation lands which were useful. It really was only to the convenience of the developer.
Okay, but they do work. The Harriman Hill housing development was 35 acres, and 30 of those acres are now in conservation open space. And there are 48, there are going to be 68 units up there, so it can work. But could we put that on the agenda so that we can have a discussion about it in the future, Tavis? Because I think Vaughn is right. If we're going to redo the regulations, we need to figure out how we can encourage people to use them, I guess. Okay, can we, Peter and Vaughn, did you get our little flyer?
You couldn't have been more concise.
Well, you don't want to test them. We only want to ask them a very simple question, yes or no. And if they want to say comments, fine. But we didn't want to give them too much because, remember, this is going to go in the flyer in the mail. majority of the people are just going to dump it, as they do. So those of us who are interested enough to say something about the question, we don't want to tax them and ask them to do too much. That was the idea. And we could have written pages if we wanted it to.
I'm not complaining, I'm just making an observation.
Well, it's a good observation. You put your finger right on the button there. That's exactly what we had intended to do. Be as
Right.
terse as possible.
Can I enlarge this by a number? Can you add the year after the word June 2021? First paragraph.
You really think that's necessary, given the fact that this is coming in the mail and it's ephemeral?
You've been doing Facebook.
I'm sorry?
You've been on Facebook lately. Yes, it's very necessary.
Okay, 2021.
2021.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, all right, somebody want to make a motion
So moved.
to, thank you, to move ahead with this flyer? I'll second, are you seconding?
Sure.
Okay, all right, I'll do a roll call vote. Von Dugan,
Yes,
Peter Goodwin,
Yes.
Mike Potter,
Yes.
John Thurston,
Yes.
Brad Harriman,
Yes.
and Julie Jacobs.
Yes.
And Kathy Barnard, I vote in favor. Okay, moving right along here. Public comments. Any member of the public out there that wants to comment? Tavis, did you check that little place where Ann Blodgett commented last time?
I checked. I would ask you to look at the cartoon bubble in your upper right-hand corner also. If there's a number in it, then you have a comment. But Suzanne Ryan did just turn her microphone on, and I'll check your cartoon bubble. I think Suzanne has it on. No, you haven't.
Okay. Oh, where are it? Oh,
Yeah, if you had a comment.
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll send you one. We'll do it
oh,
later.
okay, all right. Oh, okay, all right. Okay,
Yes, hello?
Yes.
Yeah, a question for Tavis.
the public is there, okay.
Yeah, Suzanne's
Yeah.
there. I told you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just waiting. The question to Tavis is, if I had 20 acres and I wanted to cut out some lots and I met the lot requirement, could I say remaining land to be a woodlot? In other words, do I have
Yes.
to designate, or do I have to give the impression that each lot is to be a building lot? Could I not say the remaining land of 5 acres or what have you is to be forever known as a woodlot?
You can put any restriction on your own property you would like to put on your property, with or without a subdivision.
No, I'm saying, now I've got a subdivision of, say, 20 acres I'm bringing before you, and I've got four lots, 5 acres, bing, 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 bing. And then to have that last lot on the plan be shown as a lot, it would be designated as a woodlot. That at the time I'm coming in looking for approval for subdivision, I'm just saying, okay, that remaining lot, because I don't know its viability, is just to be a woodlot.
You can put any restriction on your property you want. You do not even need a subdivision to do it.
So you get your subdivision, Suzanne, and then you can put the restriction on that lot. You can carve it out prior to going subdivision, put a restriction on it.
There you go.
Anytime you want to.
Prior, that's what I was saying, prior, so that I could get my approval for my other lots.
Yes.
That's all.
And that woodlot wouldn't need to have road frontage because it's just a,
Can't create a lot without frontage. Can't create a lot without showing buildable area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Suzanne.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Okay, Vaughn had forwarded to us some information on view shed protection. Could we put that on the next agenda so that we can have a discussion about it, please?
316 view shed, so added.
You should.
Yeah, probably, we don't. Is that okay with you, Vaughn and Peter?
Yes.
Yep, I'll try to write a document and get it to you.
Oh, okay. All right, Mike, did you want to do a quick update on how the
Yeah,
legislature's?
it's 9 o'clock. I'll be fast.
Okay.
Legislation update. 3 of the bills in the House are currently dead. The big omnibus bill that would have covered inclusionary zoning, workforce housing, planning board training, died on the full House floor, 175 to 172, very close, but it's dead currently. It can come alive, but it would be very unusual if it did. The bill to allow 3 ADUs on any one residential lot, that is dead, been voted inexpedient to legislate. The bill to allow lots of less than half an acre if town water and sewer is available, that was retained in committee, voted 18 to 1, a nice way of killing it. That's not going anywhere. The bill to allow tiny homes is still alive. It's going to be heard tomorrow in committee. Committee approves, it'll be moved to the full House floor. The Senate omnibus bill, which is sort of similar to the House's bill, but not quite so restrictive, that's moved out to the floor and it's going to go for a March 4 vote in the full Senate. Then it'll go to the House for conference. 2 new bills since the last time I reported to you. One requires a bond and a fee to appeal an approval for a site plan or subdivision. It's restrictive. Somebody doesn't approve of the decision by a planning board to approve a site plan or a subdivision and wants to appeal that, an abutter in other words, that person now has to post a bond and has to also pay a $1,700 filing fee. That bill is probably not going to go anywhere.
Is that, Mike, do you know if that's in addition to the court filing fee?
That's in addition, over and above. And then the other bill, there is a bill to require all land board members be residents of the municipality in which the board works, including ex officio members. So that's clearly somebody's ox has been gored, and by an ex officio member of a land board, and this bill is designed to not let that happen again. That will probably not go anywhere either, and that's it.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Any questions? Okay, last 2 items. Did anyone have anything else that I missed? Okay, the 2 sets of minutes, February 9th, 2021. Any issues with those minutes?
Move to approve.
Okay, motion has been made. I'll second it and do a roll call. Von Dugan?
Yes.
Peter Goodwin?
Yes.
Mike Hodder?
Yes.
John Thurston?
Yes.
Brad Harriman?
Yes.
Julie Jacobs?
I was an alternate.
And Kathy Barnard, I vote in favor. There's another set of minutes from February 16th, 2021. Any corrections?
Page 5, paragraph H. The second time Mike Hodder shows up, last word in that first sentence is not. Delete the word not. So it'll read, in this manner is part of the responsibility.
Okay, thank you. All right, you want to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and I'll second the motion to approve February 16th minutes. Von Dugan?
Yes.
Peter Goodwin?
Yes.
Mike Hodder?
Yes, sorry.
And John Thurston?
Yes.
Brad Harriman?
Yes.
Julie Jacobs?
I was an alternate.
And Kathy Barnard, I vote in favor of approving the minutes. Okay, let's see, next time, we've already mentioned, we've got the charrette discussion
View shed.
Yeah, and view shed, okay, and other items as they come up. We probably want reports from our various committees. Okay. All right, anything? Okay,
Move to
motion.
adjourn.
Okay, motion has been
Seconded.
made and seconded. Vaughn, motion to
Yes.
adjourn, Peter?
Yes.
Thank you, folks. Good night. Mike Potter?
Yes.
John Thurston?
Yes.
Brad Harriman?
Yes.
Julie Jacobs?
Yes.
Kathy Barnett, I vote in favor. Thank you very much, folks.